Hi, everyone. I don't know if you missed us. We've been off for a couple of weeks, but we're back today. And we have been planning a great second half of the first season for you. We've got great shows in store for you, starting with today's show. Now, for those of you who have been following along so far in the season, you know that we are in the process of developing our own show called the Null Hypothesis. Well, with us today, we have some of the cast members of the Null Hypothesis, and we're looking forward to talking with them today. My name is Gregory Q. Jenkins. I am the founder and CEO of Quintasia Studios, and this is the Quintasia Podcast. I would like to welcome to the podcast today, we have Breton Tyner-Bryan, who plays Cassandra. We have Giselle Samson, who plays Sarah Estranza. And finally, we have Demi Davis, who plays Trinity Taylor on the Null Hypothesis. Now, what we're doing here today, folks, is we're kind of giving you a glimpse. We're taking a peek behind the scenes, if you will, of what it's like as we build our show. We did a few prequel episodes, which were kind of like samples and ideas. When the actual show launches, there are going to be some changes, but we kind of laid out one possible vision of what the show could look like. And today we're going to talk with some of our cast members. So welcome to the show, ladies. Hope you're all doing well this morning.
Yay! Thanks for having us.
Not a problem. Not a problem.
Thanks for being here.
So let's it's been a minute since we've all seen each other. And obviously we've had a pandemic in between. So I guess that's the elephant in the room. So let's talk about that, and let me ask all of you, how has this experience of living through this thing, this pandemic, how has it changed you? Who wants to take that one?
I'll start.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, it's crazy because I remember the week it happened, and it was just like New York is shutting down, and like I was like, what? New York doesn't shut down, like what? And I was like, okay, a couple of weeks, whatever. And then it was like, oh, this is serious, this is real, like. And then it became like, I think the first few weeks were like, it was hard to sleep. I didn't know what was going on. And then like, it became the new normal. And I just learned to enjoy the little things, I try to use my time well. I cleaned my apartment really well. I started writing a book from the show that I did a pilot for, and decided I was going to move forward with it, but then decided to write a book. So I almost done with that. It's called Girl Problems. And I just started, looking at marketing. I kind of just like, I need to better myself. So I just did more studying about marketing, and I wrote some songs, and I spent time with friends and family to a degree, of course, but a lot of time outside, because that's all you could do. So I was actually in the park a lot. And when you could have outdoor drinks, we would have drinks in the park and just talk. And it was just like being outside, and the simplicity of life I learned to appreciate, because I feel like, especially as a New Yorker, we're so busy, like always doing something. And especially me, I'm always doing something. So to force myself to slow down and think and kind of enjoy life was pretty interesting. And I learned how to self-tape better, since that's the thing now. So I got a little light. I learned how to do.
Yes.
I catched up on stuff. So I just think just getting used to the new normal, and kind of trying to better myself, and focus on goals. And I lost some weight, started modeling again. So good stuff with, you know, obviously the not so good stuff, but I try to make the best of the situation.
Absolutely. All right. Giselle, you want to go next?
Sure, yeah. Like Demi said, what the heck? New York is closing now. I was one of those, not happening, don't believe it, all this will blow over. I literally said this at like I was having like one of those like brunches out there with music and everything and didn't buy into it. And then I was like, oh my gosh, this is for real. And at first I was like, all right, whatever. I just will stay in my apartment. And I hung out. I don't think I got out of pajamas for like a week one time. And I was jumping off the couch and landing into the, cushions like in the middle of the living room, like I was a child again. And then that was over pretty fast because I was like, okay, wait, no. All right. So enough playing. This is some serious stuff. What do I do with this time? And for me, same as Demi said, I tried to find the silver lining in all of this for myself specifically. And for me, I went within myself and I found that I wanted to also better myself on the mental health aspect. So I got into spiritual healing. I, got a therapist and just talked things out because in a quarantine like situation, you're really just faced with you. I don't have all these distractions like auditions and going to set or partying or whatever. I had the park, I had my apartment, and I had myself. So, and drives. I was fortunate enough to just take long drives. One time I just drove to Montauk and drove right back, 6 hours, but clear my head a lot and learn about myself. And yeah, mental health was key for me.
All right. How about you, Breton?
Can tag on what Giselle said. So I did a lot of therapy that I never would have done in my busy run around, ignore everything New York life. So I did a lot of therapy. I got a driver's license finally because getting out of New York in a pandemic when you rely on the trains for the past 8 years is a great thing to have, or just feeling like you can go wherever you need to go to be safe. I was on set on 2 different sets, large ones, right up until things shut down. And I remember everybody wanted to shake hands and me going, I'm not sure that's where we want to be going. And so I felt really lucky that I could be working during, sort of up to like March 15th. But I also realized in retrospect how lucky I was that those groups of people were not ill. Because this is for like Apple TV and HBO, and these are just massive sets where everybody's touching everything and, different world. But I was lucky to catch up on a bunch of editing that I hadn't planned on films I've shot and directed. So I focused on that. And then just like the self-tape game is a whole new world that's pretty wonderful where you can do it from wherever you are. But definitely focus on the mental health. And I feel like I I have to actively choose to have peace and a calmness in my life, and I'm aware of making that decision to have it versus just like getting to it later, and how necessary that is to do it now.
Yeah, I think that this experience that we've had, the one thing that comes to mind, it's I've seen the evolution. Um, I in the circle of coworkers and friends that I have, we're pretty hard charging, and rest is not something that we're good at. So for those of my coworkers and colleagues who have kids, at the beginning of the pandemic, it was like, I'm home. I get to see my kids now. I get to play with them. It's so great. Fast forward to today, it's like, when are we going back to the office? I'm going to kill my kids. I can't stand it anymore. Um, so I've seen that progression, but we've definitely all, I think, um, it was a wake up call that, you have to still have time for life. And I think for the past year, if there was ever a silver lining you could take out of, something like this, as I think many of us rediscovered life during this period. So I guess that's a good thing. Um, all right, this is a question that often gets asked. And before I do that, let me just take a little break. For those of you who may have joined us and you didn't join at the top of the podcast, this is the Quintasia podcast, and we're talking today with some of the cast members from the Null Hypothesis, which is the show that we're trying to bring forward to you, and we're having a great conversation today. So let me ask this question of you guys. I know that this is kind of a standard question, but I know for me, it applies. If you had the ability to talk to your younger self, what advice would you give yourself at this stage of your life? Who wants to take that one? Breton, why don't you go first since you...
Okay. It's interesting. I feel like I would say the same thing to my younger self as I would today, which surprises me. And just to keep going and believe in yourself, and the rest is just icing on the cake. Because if you have that piece, I think you can accomplish anything, and that's been very clear through pandemic. If you're centered in yourself and your strength, your vision, that's your biggest selling point, your biggest calling card. So I'd say just keep going. And I used to sort of resent that advice from other people around me. I was like, what am I going to do with that? Keep going. Thank you so much. It's,
Yeah.
it's very specific. Thank you so much for that advice, because I am swimming in this world. But I really think that coming from a dance background, motion is the anti-death. It's a movement. It's what keeps us mentally and emotionally intact.
Giselle, how about you?
Oh, wow. Such similar thoughts, really. So the thing is, for me specifically, I feel like although physically I'm not my younger self any longer, my brain really still feels like I am my younger self. And I guess much like what Breton says, it's the same thing I would tell myself on the daily, because I feel like through my therapy, I am kind of talking to my younger self on a daily basis. And I guess the one thing I would say, to keep it short and sweet, is the mind is a very powerful thing. Very. And explore that. That's what I would say.
And we had a previous podcast guest, and they're from an organization called Unlocking Futures, and they deal with youth at risk. And one of the things that they teach young people, and more importantly, or equally as important, their parents, because they're part of the equation, is the importance of goal setting. And how that ties in is thoughts give rise to action. So if you have negative thoughts, you're going to manifest that reality for you. And that's why being aware of your thoughts, and we all have negative thoughts, but when you find yourself on that negative station, you have to have the ability to change the channel. Because if you stay on that station, you will begin to manifest negative things for yourself. Demi, how about you?
Mine, I feel like Giselle, when she said she's still her younger self, I still feel like my younger self. I feel like kind of on that same note. And one thing I would tell myself is, so I did a little modeling and acting when I was very young, and I enjoyed it. But one of the things that came with it, and this is something I had to like figure out, is criticism. So I love my mom, but my mother would criticize me in a way to help me, but the way she went about it for me was too negative, in the sense that like it kind of, I don't know how to describe it. It kind of followed me where it's like I didn't know how to take criticism without being offended by it. So I had to learn. I would tell my past self to don't be offended by the criticism, learn from it. It's going to help you. It's not to bring you down, it's to help you learn. And that's one thing I've learned. I've learned to actually take in criticism and not, there's a balance of it, because you can't be so concerned with everyone else thinks. But just to take in a different thought process or a different way of looking things, I think is the one thing I would tell my younger self, because that definitely hindered a lot of things in taking criticism. It was very hard for me. Like I always got offended. Like, what are you trying to say? But that's the one thing I would tell myself.
Definitely, for those of us who are in the creative arts, the ability to deal with criticism is huge. And it's always difficult because whether you're an actor, you're a model, you're a writer, you're putting a piece of yourself out there. And when someone criticizes your work, it feels like a criticism of you personally.
Mhm.
And it takes a while, if ever, where you learn to divorce that, and you try to hear what the person is trying to tell you, and you try to grow from that. So yeah, definitely some interesting thoughts there. But I wanted to ask that question because I know, like we've been saying, this year has been a year of reflection, and I was curious to know, what you guys thought about that. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, this is the Quintasia podcast. And if you've been following us, you know how we roll. This is our management team asking questions of our guests. Our guests today are some of the cast members from our show that we are working on and trying very diligently to bring to you, the Null Hypothesis. So now I'm going to turn it over to our CTO, Harv Latko, who will continue the conversation. Harv, take it away.
Welcome. Nice to finally meet all of you.
Yeah, nice to meet you.
We've watched the prequels. We've grown as a company. It's nice to have you here with us today. What keeps you all involved with the show?
Yeah, so for me, I like to be a part of something new. I have such an affinity for entrepreneurs just across the board, and especially in a like creative space such as this. If I can help in any way and be of service, I'm all about it. And luckily in this project, I get to bring my acting abilities to the whole production. And one other thing that really drives me is that we're mostly, as a lead characters, we're mostly a group of females. And there's not a whole lot of shows out there that are like that. And so bringing that female empowerment to me is really exciting. And I feel that, I always bring this to the forefront, and people can criticize or not or whatever at this point. I don't care. I was I was in the very, very first season of America's Next Top Model. So, and we had like nothing. The show didn't even almost happen later that I found out. But we had no budget. They were, scraping by the skin of their teeth. And I was a part of that group. And now it's this huge worldwide phenomenon. It's a franchise. And I was a pioneer cast member to that. And I feel like anytime that I join something that's new, I want to bring that same sort of energy and hopefully be a part of something that can be that vortex to continue to grow and create and become something great. So I go in with it with a positive attitude, and I wish nothing but the best, and just also love Greg. He's cool, he's sweet, he's kind, he's patient, and I like to work with those types of people.
Well, he's not always that.
Okay. No, not always, but
I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah. Total setup.
Who'd like to-
I will say that, like Giselle said, so you never know where something's going to go. And so if you like what you're doing and you like the story and you like what's happening, why not go on for the full journey and see it through? Because you never know what's going to happen, So I enjoyed the story. I enjoyed the characters, and I thought it was very interesting. And like she said, mostly female cast, and, I liked where the story could go. So I said, I'm along for the journey. I'm along for the ride. So let's, ride this out and see what happens. And I think any project like that, you should, because you never know what anything is going to turn into. I've done a lot of my own independent projects as a singer. Like I produce mostly all my own music videos and had to do that kind of stuff. So I kind of know what it's like to be in charge of everything and have to put it together and make things happen. And so I kind of personally know what that is like. And it's great when you have people behind you that push you also and stay involved. It really makes you, it adds to the thought that you're doing something that is worth it.
A lot more than it looks on the surface when you see it, the final production, right?
Oh yeah.
Definitely.
A lot more
Brett,
work.
Breton?
Yeah, sure. So for me, it's about the team and the journey, and I know what it's like to produce theater shows and dance performances and my own films and like the hustle to get them colored and finished and cast and change the cast. And I fully respect and appreciate that from Greg. And he and I also have this like really interesting journey in terms of being at table reads with many different people, sort of like watching this whole process grow. Um, and he was so kind actually to me because I wasn't able to go to the early auditions. This is like before self-tapes were like the way they are now. And and just like that process of us growing together has been really exciting. And I'm super excited to see a show with three strong female leads take off. So it really is like I love the process, and it's so exciting to see how far it's come from those moments. And I know Greg has so much more in store, which I respect so much that the vision is like all the way over there. Um, and I and the hustle it takes to do that.
Well, I have to say, I believe in the show. I believe in you all, and I'm happy now to be the CTO. But Greg actually involved me early on. He called me up uh, one morning and said, "Harv, we're filming the Null Hypothesis. Can you help me out? We need our sound man to get to the studio, and he can't get there. So I picked him up in Manhattan, drove him to the set, and I kind of wish I would have stuck around. I had no idea I'd become a part of Quintasia, but it would have been nice to see you, face to face and meet you all as you were filming and producing and acting. Um, so I'm glad we're finally together, and hopefully one day we'll get together and we'll do the next episodes and build on our careers together. Demi, you mentioned, some of the music videos, things like that. You also have a very strong singing career, as I understand, as well as acting. How do you sort of see this all unfolding in the future for you?
Um, so yeah, during the pandemic, I started writing new songs. I actually was in the middle of releasing the EP when the pandemic hit. Like I was actually working on the music videos and I was working on shows. I had done a couple of shows. Actually, the week of the pandemic, I had a big show, an acoustic set in Poughkeepsie that like got canceled. And I was like, it's just the flu because at the time, they brushed it off and nobody really knew. And I was like, okay, we've had swine flu and all this other stuff. So a lot of stuff got put on hold. Now I'm kind of have new songs written that I'm going to go back in the studio to record in a little bit, record the videos that I've been meaning to do. I think for me, it's a lot of like, I did a self-focused thing where getting back to basics, like back to vocal lessons, back to acting classes. I want to take some improv classes, and marketing, of course, which is super important because that's a huge thing. And I think it's just right now it's me learning and putting things together. Like I took new headshots, I'm taking classes, so I'm in a building mode right now so that when things really pick up, I'm like ready to jump in and really do things. So I'm a little excited for that.
Well, it looks like, according to our governor, things are about to open up big time. So we should all be
Yeah.
exactly. And some of you are ready to party right today, I see.
Oh yeah.
If you go to Times Square, it's it's not quite normal, but it's a lot closer than what it was a month ago. That's for sure.
You go anywhere, it's like that.
I
And
remember
that,
when the moment was like when non-essential stores opened and I think I went to some clothing store and I was like, I'm in a store buying clothes. I was like so happy because it was like just anything that wasn't being out, you know what I mean? Anything like that opened up, I was so excited about, cautious but excited. So it's just funny how far we've come in that time period.
Yes.
well, it's certainly gone the other way too. I mean, I was able to go to some of these large stores that were closing and, sort of get for pennies on the dollar. It's amazing to see. And I'm hoping, now that it's over, some of these businesses come back because I know everybody's been hurting financially.
Yeah.
I'm curious to see, how quickly it comes back. But on that happy note, coming back out of the pandemic, I'll pass it back to Greg.
And I just wanted to take a second, to say that for those of you who, my idea behind the prequel episodes that we shot was to kind of give people a window into, they're episodes, but they're also like a documentary. I got a little nostalgic when Breton started talking about the beginning and the table read. Um, and as we go on, I'm going to lay out the story more of just how much work, and we still got a long way to go, but just how much work it took to get to where we are. And I am, and one of the things that keeps you going is I am so enormously grateful for the cast that we have. Like what you've heard Giselle say, she was part of America's Next Top Model Cycle 1. That's a big deal to me, that we have somebody who was in an established show that's taking a chance. And Breton, she was in Billions. She was on, as you see, she appears on HBO shows and Apple Plus, and I mean, we had a serious cast here. And when people lend their talents, and Demi as well, everyone's taking a risk being a part of this, and that kind of humbles you and makes you work harder. So, and Giselle, you shared with me a fact. I forgot when. I think it was someone had shared with you that the percentage of roles in Hollywood that go to males, and that stuck with me. Like, hmm. So
About
I
75%.
exactly. And I I feel like we have an opportunity. Like the people you see on your screens today, or the people you're listening to, if you're listening to us through the audio version of our podcast, these characters are going to drive the story. There is one male lead, but you've got three strong female women who are running a business, and they are not background. They are not window dressing. They're going to drive this plot. And I'm excited about, and it was the comments from all the actors who were participating that started to give me an idea that, hey, maybe I'm onto something. And then when I introduced certain new characters, then it really exploded, where people said we just don't get a chance to see stuff like this. Um, Let me ask you, Giselle. Let me ask you this question. So you've know we talked about America's Next Top Model. You've led a fascinating life. Um, you've also danced with Michael Jackson. For those of you who may not have known that fact. Now, for a lot of people, they would stop there. Like, wow, that's the pinnacle. That's the top. But what keeps you hungry? What motivates you to keep going?
So yeah, I've been performing since I was very young. Dance was what my mom put me in, so that way I would stay out of trouble and have basically a babysitter after school. So dance was what I knew. It's what I grew up with. It just is like, brushing your teeth, Breton, it's just part of your life, right? So that was always something I just kept on doing, kept on doing, kept on doing. But for me personally, I knew I would have a shelf life on that career. And I always, always, always wanted to get into acting. I did Shakespeare festivals when I was in middle school and in drama club when I was in high school, whatever. And I knew that I always wanted to go back to that. But then everyone pushed me towards modeling because I was so tall. I didn't want to model. I'm like, I want to speak, as you can see. I'm like, anyway. So I did all that, and then I decided that I was burnt out, and I actually left the business for a good 6-7 years. And I came back in about 3 or 4 years, not 4 years, I don't even know, about 4 years, give or take. And it was my brother who inspired me because he got on all these shows and blah, blah, and he's 6'9". And I was always nervous because I thought being 5'9", 5'10", that I could never get any roles. and I didn't have all like the background of all, you know, a big resume and blah, blah, blah. And I was a reality person. So I just had all this self-doubt, and he pulled me aside and he gave me this big old pep talk. And I was like, all right. And so I got into a theater company here in New York, and it just one thing led to the next, the next, the next, the next, the next, the next. And I was like, all right, here we go. It was like pretty smooth. I mean, no, of course, there's always obstacles. And then bam, 2020 happened. So then, yeah, but it's okay because I feel remotivated because it's like we all had that cooling off period, and I feel we're all like, you know, we're like, okay, it's opening, and that gives me more motivation to get back going. And I am. Yeah, there's a lot going on.
Well, that's good. And what I was going to say real quickly is, so for those of you who may not know, Mr. Sharonis J. Jackson, who can be seen currently on Games People Play and formerly of the HBO show Insecure, is Giselle Samson's brother. So that's who she's referring to. A little bit of trivia there to give to our audience. Once again, this is the Quintasia podcast. We're talking to our cast, some of our cast members from the Null Hypothesis. And now I'm going to turn it over to our controller, Randy Wang, who will continue the conversation.
Thank you, Greg. Just to reiterate, thank you, ladies, for joining us today. It's been a pleasure speaking with you and meeting the three of you. So my first question is for the group. What's something that you wish more people knew about you as an actor and what you bring to the table? So whoever wants to answer first, please.
So I think it's interesting what Giselle was saying about height. So for the longest time, like as a dancer, as an actor, I would always be cast in like very serious roles because I'm like 5'9", 5'10", and I can play that villain with my features. But I absolutely love comedy, and just always go to the short, petite, kind of spry energy folk. And that's something that's been happening a little bit more. I'm getting called in for a lot more comedy, which I really enjoy. But most people don't know that about me, or that my favorite thing is actually to make people laugh. That's what I was doing as a kid in ballet school, was like doing impersonations of my like crazy old teachers behind their back. And I was probably more satisfied doing that than doing class. And sort of that element of just bringing joy to people, especially after this past year. So I think the comedy is something that I think I had forgotten, that's very close to my heart and is something I love doing as a performer. But I also feel like I have that opportunity with the Null at times, because it's sort of like about what goes wrong, what can be so outrageous in an office setting, that's so sort of out of place but honest, that humanity. So yeah, I would say the comedy is a piece that people don't know currently as much about me as a part of my background, but that is coming and that I love.
I would say for me, my newest added thing is voiceover. I've always kind of been interested in. I dabbled in it before, but now I got a mini home studio set up, so I've been working more in that, and it's fun. It's kind of cool, you know. You don't have to, you know, you could be in your pajamas and you just put on the mic, put your headphones on, and read the lines, you know. So I'm really excited about doing more of that kind of stuff.
Oh, me.
Wow.
Well, yeah, I don't know. This is a toughie for me to answer, I guess. Well, okay. What people don't know about me in the acting realm of my work or myself is that I'm a lot more vulnerable than I let on. People assume with the height thing that, you know, you're super, there's power and a lot of courage, and you know, there's a presence when you're very tall and you walk in a room. And I always get criticisms from, like, well, not always, but I've gotten some criticisms from some agents in the past and some casting people, like, learn how to be more vulnerable and in your daily just living, and then within your work. And I have yet to be given really that opportunity. And there's so much of me that is like that as a person and also as an actor. And I'm hoping that eventually I'll be able to show the more vulnerable sides of me. And yeah, I think that's that for me. Yes.
So what's something that you haven't had an opportunity to do yet that you've always wanted to do? To kind of just go piggyback off that first question.
Um, I was in the middle of learning how to drive before the pandemic hit. So I don't have my license. I have my permit. I need to take at least 5 more classes and take my road test. I'm also very adventurous. So like I want to hang glide and I want to go in a
Awesome.
hot air balloon and I want to camp in a tent overnight. Like I've never done that before.
No.
So
Outdoorsy kind of person. Okay.
Yeah.
That's cool.
yeah, I want to do some
Yeah.
more outdoorsy stuff. Yeah.
Me and
And
Mother Nature, we have a pact. We stay in our separate realms.
everyone stays in. They each stay in their lane.
You could be a
Yes.
She loves you.
glamper.
Mother Nature loves you.
You could be a
No, it
glamper,
doesn't.
Greg.
That's the problem.
Yeah.
It doesn't.
Mosquitoes and I are not friends.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think anyone is. No.
They love me, but I do not love them.
Right.
Breton, how about you?
I'd like to get my boating license. I don't know if it's a good idea, but I figured if I could pull off a driver's license last year, I could probably do a boating license. And I would like to be surfing every day, but I don't know if that's possible when you're on set. So I would say I would like to be surfing more. I gave up on the pilot's license after I had to do a job as a choreographer in Nantucket in like January in the middle of the winter. And after that plane ride, I was very clear I was not meant to get a pilot's license. So I don't have the stomach or the nervous system for that. So we'll just go with the boating license and then
Well,
keep
That's
it
it.
on the water.
Brett and I could definitely relate to that because I was at Caldwell Airport where John Jr. took off that day, and that was his first IFR without his instructor. He was rated for IFR, but he was not solo ever, even though he was licensed to be solo. And look what happened. And I definitely agree with you on the pilot's license. I actually ended up flying back from Bader Field in a blizzard, and we lost all our electronics, and I thought for sure I was going to die.
Wow.
It-
Oh my gosh. You
It's
said
funny.
it so calmly.
Yeah, he could laugh about it now, right? You could laugh about it
yeah, I
now.
could laugh at, but then it wasn't so fun because we lost. The only thing that was running was the engine. We lost our radio, we lost all our electronics, our transponder, and we were flying into Newark airspace. So
Wow.
we
I
went
A
can't
little
down,
imagine.
dangerous.
and
Yeah.
we went down and we followed the coastline back to. We saw the Brigada, and we landed at Bader Field. And so I believe in living life, and I'm happy to live this life with you. I was I was 18 when I got my captain's license at
Oh, okay.
100-ton United States Coast Guard ocean going, and so
Beautiful.
I believe that this is an opportunity. We're here together. We're going to enjoy each other, but we need to grow, and it's something that we can each learn from each other. I don't do well in front of the camera. I'm not I mean, I get camera shy. I've done a few commercials and
You
TV
shy, Harv?
documentaries.
We don't
In
believe
You wouldn't
front of
think
the-
so, right? You wouldn't think so.
You wouldn't think so because if you get to know
Everyone's
me,
shaking their head. No one believes you.
I come across very confident when I'm in my element. Put me in front of a camera and try to script me. I get camera shock. I mean, I
Well,
really do.
I can
I don't
vouch
know
for the
why.
scripted part.
Yeah, I always go off script. Greg will tell you, I always go off script. But
Yes, he does.
I enjoy the creative side. I enjoy people. You never know who you're going to meet in life and how it all works. So I'm really happy that we're getting to know each of you. And I'm hoping to bring the technical infrastructure to make Quintasia huge. And I'm hoping that you'll all continue along with us in this journey. And for those listening to the podcast, we'll look back on this years from now and say, hey, remember those humbling beginnings and where we are now? And don't discount it. The trick is to be there when it really takes off. I mean, I've been in entrepreneurial startups before and they've taken off. And some of them, I was with them when they took off. Some of them, I was with them before they took off. And this is an opportunity here for us to all work together, and I'm hoping that everybody that's on this podcast stays and watches our journey. And I hope we all end up together. I seriously do. So I'll stop talking now, Greg, because Greg will tell you I always talk too much. But it's been a real pleasure to meet all of you. And finally, we get to meet the cast. Back to you, Greg.
No,
Well, actually,
let's
Randy was still.
let's give Giselle an opportunity to answer that. Giselle, so what about you? What's something that you
Oh,
had an opportunity to do?
I was hoping to skirt out of that one.
You want me to- okay.
No such
Nope, that doesn't have. That's not how it works.
It's okay. Well, I am not as adventurous as all of y'all. Like, no. I like my feet on the floor, and I want to stay there, and I'm good. For me, it's back to a performing thing. It's something that's just like a dream, and maybe in the future, Breton will help me with this. But I have this dream that, like, between the ages of 42 to 45, I'll get to do like one weekend as Velma Kelly in Chicago. I just want to do that so badly, just for a weekend though, because I don't have the voice, that strength as a singer to carry on a whole run. I just want a weekend, like a matinee and a Twilight performance, and that would be epic for me. That's something I really want to do that I haven't done yet.
That's awesome.
Giselle, I love that.
Yeah.
I'm like,
I
I
would-
can assist and you can wear the outfit. And Demi can sing because I can't sing. So
Yeah, exactly.
yeah,
Perfect.
perfect. Yeah.
I'll be matron Mama Morton.
Oh, so great.
Mama Morton.
Hey, Brenton, you mentioned dance quite a few times. So how does your experience in the world of dance influence and affect the work you do in film and television?
That's a great question. Thanks, Randy.
No,
I mean, for me, it's definitely about movement and motion. And I think, I mean, I received I grew up in serious ballet school, we'll say, like for many, many years, I was in that world. And it just teaches you all about angles, sort of in a way that's almost too self-conscious, I think, but you're aware of every angle. Everything is a diagonal that's slicing and crossing. And so my eye is trained for that specificity, especially for camera. And I think what I love so much about filmmaking is that the camera gets to dance with the motion, the action, or even the stillness of what's happening. But for me, what I love about filmmaking is the portraiture, the focus on the face, how close, how intimate we can get with that, how just a subtle eye or an angle, again, like a diagonal in a ballet class, like a fifth position in the cheek, the jaw, that can radiate on camera. So I think for me, it's just one form of motion to another form of motion. But the specificity and the sort of I don't want to say neurotic focus, but the commitment to like the best angle, the best lighting, the best costume, the best set, that all comes from my ballet background. That's like such a specific, controlled, cultured place. So I think I love that visual specificity to communicate a world, to communicate a character. But for me, it's just like one form of motion to the next.
that's awesome. I might need your number. I promised my fiance I would learn how to dance before our wedding. So yeah,
I'd be happy to help out.
Take
Whatever
his
you
dance
need.
classes.
yeah. So I might need to take.
Do ballet.
I might
can't
need
come
to
to
take.
anybody.
Yeah, I might need to take a class for 20 or 30. But yeah, I have a year. But yeah, you know what?
I think it's so interesting how that works. Like the camera, whether it's a video camera or a photography camera, how I mean, Giselle, like when you take a picture or when you're shooting something, sometimes it's so weird what you're doing, but it looks great on camera. And sometimes it's funny learning that. Like there's so many times like this feels so weird. I know it looks weird and it feels weird, but it looks amazing on camera.
Cool.
You see, and you're like, oh crap, you're right. So okay, now I know how to get used to these weird positions, and that's gonna look good. It's funny how that works,
It's like they ask you to act natural. Because we just got our engagement photos and they're like, do this, do that. I'm like, this is the weirdest thing I'm doing right now. But it looks great. I'm like, okay,
But it looks
I believe
great, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah. So,
yeah.
All right, Greg, back to you.
All right. And again, one of the things that I like about what I'm doing is I'm not a person that, I've had business ventures before, but I was on the music side of the business first. Ran an independent record label, and so I was more used to dealing with singers and dancers that world. And then I decided well, I didn't exactly decide, it kind of fell into my lap. I got into more of the acting side of the business, and I will just take this opportunity to give you, Giselle, and you, Breton, some positive feedback. Um, First, Giselle, I remember, if you recall, you invited me to come see you in a play a couple of years ago, and I saw you in this play. You remember the name of what it was?
A Beautiful Color.
A
Demi came
Beautiful
to me.
Color. Yes, A
Yeah,
Beautiful
I was
Color.
there.
And I'm going to tell you, I was blown away. I was literally blown away. So if anyone says that you cannot act, they don't know what they're talking about. That's, from me. And Breton, the reason why I casted you in the role is because a big part of comedy is the physical part. And so on the tapes that you had on your profile, like, it was your physical expression. You were able to convey, not just in the words, but your physical expression is what lent to the comedy of the piece that you were performing. So I absolutely think there is room for comedy in there for you. So I just wanted to pass that out to you. And just so, Demi, you don't feel left behind, um, um, what the reason, and I've told you this before, but I'll tell you now on the podcast so people know. With the character of Trinity, it's a African American woman who, I don't like to call her an antagonist per se. I mean, she ultimately will develop to be, well, in the original story. Things are changing now, but she's a difficult character. But I needed someone who could play the difficult character without being hated, because Trinity is not a kind of character that you hate. You know, she annoys you, she drives you nuts, but for some reason, you still like this human being. And you still, because there's a vulnerable side to her, and you don't get to see it often, but when you do, you go, that's why I'm still friends with this person. And you so beautifully capture that. Of all the actors, and there were over 200 of them that I you know auditioned for the role. You were the only one who had that balance, that I didn't come away wanting to kill Trinity. So
Remember you telling me
definitely.
I don't want her to be like straight out angry for no reason. You like put layers in it, and I was like, okay.
Yes, because we've seen angry Black women,
Oh gosh.
and
Yeah.
that's not what I wanted to
Okay.
do.
Yeah.
I wanted a more nuanced thing, and you gave me that. So um, kudos to you. And ladies and gentlemen, this is something, this is a passion of all of ours, that we're going to be working on and trying to bring this forth to you. Stay tuned. We're going to have more cast members on, and we'll be talking more about the story. I am changing some things because I've learned through this process, particularly like when Demi, you were saying, I remember sometimes when you guys were doing your scenes, I got so caught up in the scene and just looking at what you were doing, I wasn't paying attention to how it looked in the lens. And I now know, I don't care what my eyes are saying, it's what it looks like in the lens that matters. And because sometimes I would just get, you get amazed when you write something and then you see people take what you wrote and make it their own, and you get lost in that process. And watching all of you kind of take my words and then you know do something with it and make it, breathe into it and make it alive, sometimes you get lost in that process. But I've learned, no dummy, you got to pay attention to what's happened in the lens, and make sure that that looks as good. So we're gonna be rolling on a lot more things. There's a lot more to store. I can tell you right now, the look and feel of the show will be a lot different from what, yes, the episodes were very raw, but we're just getting started, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you've enjoyed today's podcast. It was so great to have our leading ladies on our show today. Thank you so much for stopping by and for doing our podcast. We hope to obviously be hearing from these ladies again sometime in the future. So, on behalf of my co-host Randy Wang and Harv Lacko, and our guests, we have uh, Breton,
You nailed
Zell,
it.
and Timmy. I wanted to say to everyone, you have been listening to the Quintasia podcast. Bye for now. We're going to have some more great shows for you for the second half of the season. Stay tuned.